So I'm going to start, and I'm going to start with something relatively important. So yeah, so they're just going to have to miss out on that important information, aren't they? If they're not here already. Hey, okay, cool. We've got Anjali, which has been perfect, who has been tagged. Right, okay, so I'm going to start with why we're here. So we are here today to talk about tribe building. Okay, and it's a question that has come up so much. I asked you guys what you wanted to hear about, and that was the biggest thing that you wanted to hear about right now. So the first thing to say is I am not somebody who has built a list of amazing amounts of people, and as you can see from this group, I equally haven't built a huge group. However, I am testament to the fact that at the end of the day, you don't need a huge audience in order to make money. And I think that's the biggest thing. And it's something that, coaches over time have drummed into me. And it's something that is now kind of part of my mindset, that you really don't need a huge audience. It's always quality over quantity. Hey, Tina says, not caught you live in ages. I know it's been a while. So it's always quality over quantity when it comes to your audience. Because, and I wrote an article about this the other day about, does audience size matter? And it does. It does matter. And a lot of people say, oh, it doesn't matter. And this is the thing. People try to tell you that because they want to make you feel better about the fact that you've got a smaller audience. And so I know that's why they're telling you that. And it's not true either. You don't need a large audience to make money, but you do need to make sure you have a quality audience. But obviously, if you can build a large quality audience, like, let's not be stupid here, of course you're going to make more money because you've got more quality people inside of your group, on your list, or wherever it is that you're collecting people, right? So yes, audience size does matter, if depending on how much what your revenue goal is. But at the end of the day, it doesn't mean that you're not going to make any money. The conversion rate can be very high. Like, there are a lot of people out there with huge audiences that don't get very good conversion at all, and that they have to be very conservative, and the percentage is much lower. But in my audiences, my conversion rates are huge because I make sure that the right people come in. And the way that I make sure the right people come in is that I have become a specialist in what I do. I've become a specialist in helping people to find clarity on their micro niche, on their ideal client, and on what makes them unique, awesome, and wanted. That's my focus. And so I know that if someone starts following me, the likelihood is they're following me because of that. And this is the thing. I see a lot of people with audiences, but they have shifted their niche over so many years. And I'm just going to be completely honest with you. These people have shifted their niche over so many years. They've never really stuck with something. Something has never really ever taken off. And so they've got this hodgepodge of people in their audience that they're struggling to convert because they've been building it based upon, and okay, I'm just going to call out some of the bad methods. Going to a networking group, taking business cards, which we all know from GDPR is not acceptable. It's never been acceptable in my eyes. I know Alessia wrote a post the other day on this around, it's just plain rude. Taking cards, business cards, and then just entering in details into your list, or just just adding people to your group. It's not cool. And that's what happens when you make the assumptions, when you're just focused on numbers instead of who you're getting into your group or onto your list. That's when you'll end up with a large audience of nobody buying. And then you start to make it personal, because then you're like, well, hang on a minute, I've got this audience and nobody's buying from me. It must be me. I'm not doing the right thing. I'm not doing this. And then you start changing what you do, what you say, how you behave, your mindset changes, all because of how you built your tribe in the first place, which then has a knock-on effect and completely ruins your business. And it does. I know it sounds very dramatic and awful, but that's what happens. So that's why some people end up dropping a bomb on their audience and going, that's it. Let's start from scratch. And sometimes, not all the time, sometimes that is the best way to do it. Or at least figure out who is on your list, what their problems are, and weeding out the wrong people. Sometimes that's necessary. I'm just thinking, I think some people have big lists because people forget to leave. Yeah, absolutely. I think especially with Unroll Me, if anyone knows of that, Unroll Me has actually suspended their services at the moment, which is hilarious considering what they do. So Unroll Me is basically a system that puts people into kind of like a separate list, so it kind of clears up your inbox. So you can either choose to unsubscribe, and that's the best way. If you're putting them into a different inbox, you may as well just unsubscribe. But this is what people have done. They go into a separate inbox, and so they still appear to be on your list and active, and they haven't unsubscribed because they kind of had that thing like I do with the tabs of, I don't really want to unsubscribe, but I need to clear my inbox out, so I'll just put them over here. And then you get put into this other inbox, and then you know they never see you again, but they've not unsubscribed. So you're exactly right, Tina. A lot of people have huge lists because people do forget to leave, and I think GDPR has done a huge cleanup job on things like that, where people have done re-engagement campaigns and stuff like that. I know people with humongous lists which have been massively reduced down because of that. And Nikki says the business card thing is funny. I often wonder how I get on lists, and it's always the business card trick. Oh, it frustrates me. If I've genuinely spoken to someone and said, oh, I'm really interested in that, get in contact, then totally cool. Email me, but don't just take my, like, oh god, it just drives me nuts. Tina says I signed up for a conference, couldn't go, and got an email saying how great it was and meet me and giving me the info I asked for. I wasn't there. Oh no, that is a shame. That is, yeah, this is the thing, we do kind of have to be careful. I must admit I've probably made that mistake in the past, where people have signed up for something and they've got the email saying how great it was. It's what happens sometimes. But yeah, it's not, it's better to be mindful about that. But all I'm saying is it's really about adding people with class, making sure that we're getting the right people in who actually want to be there, because there's no point putting people in when they don't want to be there, which is why it's always best to invite versus assume. Make sure you just invite people. So like I said, I don't have a huge audience, but I do know something about building the right audience. So that's kind of what I want to talk to you about today. So what I want you to do is give yourself a mantra of, it doesn't matter how many. It doesn't matter how many. It matters who, and that's the thing. So I'm going to give you my 3W trick, right? The 3W trick is, who are they? So who am I actually trying to get into my tribe? So that's the first thing, get really clear on who they are. Second W, where are they? Third W is, what are you saying? So you've got the who, where, and what, right? So where are they? And the who will give you a big hint as to where they are. So if your question is, where are my ideal clients? I would suggest that you're either doing this or you don't have clarity on who. It's one of the two, because as soon as you know who they are, what their problem is, and what they want to achieve, you kind of know where they're going to be, right? And the thing is, we get this thing in our head where we have one person, and this is a good activity to do. It's a good one, but this is how it goes wrong. So the activity is, you get a solid, concrete version of your ideal client, someone you know who is physically out there, and then we suddenly ask them, or we look at them and go, okay, so where are they hanging out? And you go, well, they're not hanging out there, and they're not hanging out there, and they're not hanging out there. And we make this assumption that, well, okay, well, all those other places that I may have thought my ideal client was, because they're not there, it means my ideal client isn't. And that's just not true. We just have to be a bit strategic about where people might be. People who want to lose weight will be in weight loss groups. People who are wanting to lose weight will likely want to download something on losing weight, and have been clicking on ads. People who want to lose weight may be hanging out in certain, I don't know, CrossFit groups. Like, you can just make certain assumptions about where people are going to be. You can choose the magazines you want to go to. So if you're telling me you don't know where they are, I think you're just telling yourself a story, a massive, massive story about your ideal clients not being out there, and you don't know where they are. I don't think that is the genuine problem. I think you have a clarity issue or an action taking issue. That tends to be the thing. If you know you've got clarity, it's either action taking problem or the fact, that you don't know who they are at all. So I'm just going to give you a bit of a truth bomb on that one. Oh, I've printed out my notes. And I had it in paragraphs, and now it's just printed it out in a massive wad of paragraphs. So I'm like, I have no idea where all my notes are. So this is really helpful, Jen. Well done. Okay, so we've got the 3 W's. So who are they? Where are they? And what are you saying? Now, the what are you saying part of things is also very important, because it has to all be congruent. So who are you helping? Okay, so you go and find out where they are and you start maybe networking. And I'm just going to move on to the group scenario because that's what a lot of people are asking about at the moment, and I'll talk about some other stuff in a bit. So the group scenario, the questions that I've been getting from you guys is basically, how do I get people from those groups into my tribe? Now, I have already gone through some of this in a previous live that I did, which will be up in my new free membership, which is coming soon, which will be in there anyway, so you can go back and watch it. So I'm not going to go through the whole thing around networking and groups because we've already been through that, but I'm going to give you some solid examples and some solid information on finally clearing up how it is that you go about getting somebody from a group into your tribe. Now, the first question is that group someone you are in direct competition with? Because if it is in direct competition, I would suggest that maybe you find a different group potentially, because if you're feeling icky, if you're holding back, then you're never going to make any progress in there. So the best places to be are places where your ideal clients are hanging out, but you and the leader have some kind of synergy together versus butting heads and actually being in competition. That's the best scenario. So if you are in a group where you have that, relationship where there's a synergy, they do this kind of specialism, you do your specialism, and it's all good. And someone mentioned something about having a diverse niche. Actually, the more diverse you are, the more you're going to step on somebody's toes. So the more niche you are, the easier it is to pull yourself into a blue ocean and not actually be in direct competition with people. So find your specialism. And so this is why it always comes back to that. When you find your specialism, it affects your whole business, and it makes opportunities so much easier, and it makes finding out who you're speaking to so much easier. It clears up all of the mess of, I don't know where they are, I don't know who they are, I don't know what to say. All of those 3 W's are cleared up as soon as you have real clarity on your specialism. That's the best way to do this. So you've got your specialism, they've got their specialism, the synergy. You go in there, right? So there's no stepping on toes. There isn't really any ickiness aside from you not wanting to appear like a people harvester, going into somebody's group, PMing everybody in there saying, hey, do you want to join mine? Now, let's be honest, that's proper spammy. Okay, let's pretend that this particular group has they allow you to promote. So you go in there and you go, hey, I've got a great group that you could come and join. Icky, like, okay, I've got somewhere better for you to be. Why don't you come and join this? Again, it feels icky, right? And this is the thing, is that asking somebody if they would like to join your group is a little bit like asking people, would you like to join my crummy newsletter list? And I know that's probably going to sting a few people who are offering to people to sign up to their newsletter. On the whole, people don't want to sign up to newsletters, okay? They just spent however long unsubscribing from many different, lists and newsletters. They don't want that. And it's not very specific. Like, when they sign up to your newsletter, what are they going to get? So if you are offering people a newsletter, I would suggest that you should change the wording of it. Change the wording of your newsletter to tell them about the result that they're going to get when they sign up. That's why people want to join something. It's because what's in it for them. So if they're going to join your list, what will they be getting specifically? Not just the newsletter. No one's like... The old version of a newsletter is something really dull, right? And so we need to start being a bit more creative about what we call that thing and being more specific about what they're going to be getting. Going back to the group thing, it's very much the same. Come and join yet another group where it's going to take up your time. And it does. Being in groups does take up time. It's another piece of information to consume, because assuming that the group is going to be active and that the person leading the group is going to be doing something in there, they're going to have to be alert, pay attention. To take any value from it, they're going to have to be consuming some kind of content, right? So again, when you're giving the opportunity for people to join your group, and I don't suggest you do that in somebody else's group, unless, for instance, they've provided the space to do so. Caveat there. if they like we did yesterday, okay, if they provided the space to do so, then cool, it's like an open invitation, right? Fine, cool. But even in that circumstance, like I said in the post, make sure that you actually tell people why they should be. What have you got going on in there next week that might be able to help them? What live training do you have going on? You know, is there an exclusive workbook or ebook or, you know, checklist or something that they can get if they join your group? Give people an incentive. So don't just go ahead and just ask blandly, would you like to? Well, not really, it depends. Like, what am I going to get out of this? Why should I? And explain who it is that you want in there to make sure that you're getting the right people in, which is why everything has to be specific. Be specific about who you want in there. When you put out an opt-in, be specific about who it helps and what problem it helps with, to make sure that you get the right people into your tribe, so that when you go to sell to them, they're already primed and right and cool to be going, yeah, absolutely, that's my problem. That's why I downloaded your thing in the first place. That sounds exactly like what I need, because what you're now offering me as a program package product is exactly in line with what you've offered me to begin with. So the journey makes sense. And now you're leading people through your client journey and your funnel to help them actually buy from you. Okay. So be specific on everything that you offer. Don't be generic. As soon as you're generic, you're going to be potentially getting nobody or randoms. That's just the way it is. So, okay, hang on, just going back to what I was talking about. So getting people from groups, right? Okay, so unless they've supplied the space. Now, if we're assuming now that the group doesn't allow promotion, because if it allows promotion, then it's kind of the obvious thing, guys, that you should be like actively using that. Now, I don't suggest that you actively use it to promote paid stuff. I suggest you use those opportunities to grow your tribe, because it's unlikely that people will buy from you like that. They need to see that you are an authority on your topic and that you know what you're talking about. And that generally happens when they come into your space where you dominate that space and you position yourself as that authority and as that expert. Then they'll be more likely to buy from you. So pull them into your tribe, and that's the best way to do it. So if they allow you to promote your free stuff to get them into your tribe, and that's when you can take them through the nurture process and turn them into clients, right? But that's for another day. So let's assume that the group we're talking about doesn't allow any kind of promotion at all, but you complement each other, there's a synergy, it's all good, there's no stepping on toes really. Why not offer to do a guest expert spotlight and then either use your group, which it depends. If you're so far away from each other that it still works, then cool. If you're slightly overlapping, my suggestion would be, the less icky way of doing it would be to offer an opt-in. Okay, so you give them an opt-in of some kind where they go onto your list, and once they're onto your list, then you can get them to join your group, so that it doesn't feel so icky. You know, it's a very quick and easy trick to do. So rather than just go straight for the group, why not go list to group? That's a better way of doing it. Or even if it's to join a challenge, make it something specific other than I've got a better party out down the road. Like, make it specific, because then it's not stepping on someone else's toes. So for whatever your complementing thing is, use that specifically to draw people in, because the leader's going to be a lot happier about that than you know, directly taking people and harvesting people. So don't go into a group and assume that everybody in that group, because they're your ideal client, wants to join your group, and then PM them all. Just don't do it. So I've had a lot of questions about how do I actually invite them over into it. Best tip you can have on inviting people over into your space is look out for the people who specifically have your problems. So you're going to be in those groups and you're going to be looking out for ways and means, not just this, right? Because as I said in my networking live, you also want to be adding value in terms of just being a human inside of a group, not just pouncing on people when they have a problem, because that's just ick, right? So if you're silent in a group and suddenly someone has a problem and you're like, boom, I'm in there, people don't like that, because groups are communities, and they want to feel like they're in a group full of people who kind of like care about each other. And so show some caring, you know, even if you are going in there specifically for that, and it's the first time, show a bit of empathy first, rather than just here's the info. It's like, oh, hi, hello, sorry, didn't know who you were, or you haven't even said hi, but you've just given me a ton of advice. Like, that's one way to turn people right off. So actually introduce yourself and say, hi, you know, this is what I do. This is how I normally serve my clients and what I help them with. And this is my biggest tip on this particular topic. Okay. Give them your gold publicly. Don't go, I'll PM you. Oh, I said this in my networking one, but please don't do that. Just publicly say, this is my tips, and also other people can see that you know what you're talking about as well. So it's really helpful to actually do this kind of publicly, and then let them know that you have more information on that particular topic. When you let them know that you've got more information on that particular topic, that could be that you just have more information. It could be something more specific, like, oh, I've got a workbook on that, or I've got you know, or I do this, or whatever it is. But let them know that you've got more info to be had, and that if they would like it, to just let you know. I've used this on many occasions. Works really well, because then they're like, oh yeah, that would be great, thanks. And I'll go, cool, just PM me your email address and I'll make sure that gets over to you. Done. Like, that's how you get people. So rather than, sometimes it's about not going group to group, sometimes it's about going, you know, group to list, and then list to group. From the list, and again, when they're on your list and you invite them over into the group, when you email them to say, okay, here's your freebie and whatever else, and this is another tip, you know, how do I get people into my group, is through your opt-in. And you can do this in many different ways, but you know, on the thank you page after they've downloaded the opt-in could be, great, now you've done that, why not join my group too, and give them the reasons why they should be joining your group, and give them the option on the thank you page. You could also give them the option to join a group on the email that you deliver the opt-in on. So now you've delivered, you know, you've got this. If you have any questions on this or want to delve more into the topic, why not join my group and get them to join your group from that delivery email? So there are so many different ways in which you can do it. If growing your group is your main priority, let's be a bit savvy about this, and let's be congruent in where you want to take people into. You want to be picking 2 spaces to be pulling people into, and 2 examples of that could be onto your list and into your Facebook group. That could be where you want to funnel people into. In my experience, they're the 2 best places. I always think your email list should be one place that you definitely want to be funneling people into and building your tribe on, because if you don't build a list, as we all know, whatever else you're doing, it generally isn't your audience. Someone could whip it away from you like that. You don't kind of have ownership over those people. So it's really important to grow your list and another space. So just bear that in mind, that whatever ones you pick, make your list one of them. I strongly suggest that you do that. But make it your point of contact. If the group is somewhere where you want people to be, just make it your focus. There are so many places that you can add links to your group. Like I said last time, your cover photo, you can get people in through that way. And you know, you guys are saying, you know, how when you're in groups and you're networking and whatever else, and I'm hoping people will just click through. You know, in essence, you kind of are in a way, but you can really help that process along by being an expert in your field and adding value. So this is something that I've seen stop recently. And the reason is because it starts to feel a bit icky, and a lot of people have shunned people who have come in and offer value. So they will come into a group and they will just shout at people. So this is a biggie. This is a biggie now. When you are posting on your page versus your group, there is a very, very different vibe as to how you would do both. Your page is like a broadcast. So it's like a broadcast of information, and it can sound sometimes a little bit pitchy, but it suits that platform, because it's like, generally can start with a question. Are you feeling da 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 da? Why not? Blah, 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 blah. And it sounds a little bit markety. I always try and shun away from things like that and add a bit of personality into them anyway, so it makes it sound less slogany. But either way, they are going to be more broadcasty, because you're broadcasting it out to a lot of people. Now, when you're speaking in a group and you want to add value, don't just copy and paste and post into a group because you think, oh, that's a great value post, I'll stick that in there. Because people want to be treated like you're actually talking to them. So if you if you wandered up to somebody who let's say at an exhibition, right? So you're at an exhibition that makes total sense to the niche that you're in and your industry, and you just went up to them and went, hey, do you feel blah blah blah? They're like, oh God, like, hi. Again, it's that thing of, are you going to be a human or are you going to be a robotic blog spurter, right? Because the way you would write in a blog is very different to how you'd have a conversation with somebody. And groups are all about conversation, they're about community, they're about connection. So if you just start off like your value post into a group like you do on your page, it's not going to be met with very much engagement or indeed much connection at all. A better way to post a value post into a group, which again, just to go back to my point, I'd still suggest you use value posts. They're really important. They do position you as an expert. They do position you as an authority on your topic, as long as you're posting about what you do. Okay, so that's really important. I see so many people, I post there all the time, but it's got nothing to do with what you do as in your niche. So even if you did get somebody who checked you out from that post and then came into your group, they're not going to be in there for the right reasons. They're going to be in there because of what they saw. You can't control when people are going to see you, but you can control what people see of you. And so that's really important. Whatever you're writing, try and connect it on value posts. Connect it back to what you do. And obviously we need to be careful here that we're not trivializing perhaps like world disasters, right? So if, for instance, there's a world or national disaster that's gone on, and we try and connect our trivial issue to what's going on in the world, that can piss a lot of people off. It's going to make people feel like you're trivializing what's going on. It really has nothing to do with what you're talking about. Okay, but let's just take me for an example. Like I broadcast at the very beginning of this live that I don't know about how to build tons and tons of people. I was very explicit about that, but I do know how to build a very quality audience and monetize them. I know how to do that. So that's how I'm going to connect that topic. It's, there's no loose connection. It's very much valid. It's not tenuous. It's a very strong connection. So sometimes there are topics and things that are just best left alone. Sometimes it's not for you to comment on. At least not to comment on in terms of pulling it back as a way to kind of promote your authority on a topic. I hope you get what I'm saying here. So just be mindful of that kind of common sense. There was a point I was making just before I went on to that. Value posts. So don't be afraid to do that. Don't be afraid to position yourself as an authority on that topic, but stick to your specialism and go in there. But don't start it off with a broadcast. Start it off with, hey, I've noticed you guys have been talking a lot about this topic. And I thought it would be really helpful if I came in here and gave you a couple of my top tips on the subject. How much nicer is that than a marketing slogan that kind of shouts at people instead of talks to people? It's so much nicer. As long as you're bringing some kind of humanism to what you're doing inside of a group, you're going to get much better engagement, and it's going to connect with people, and people are going to feel more inclined to speak back to you because you're actually talking to them instead of just blurting at them. I hope that makes sense. So that's one of the best tips I can give you inside of groups. Position yourself as an authority. Feel free to give your value, but do it in a way that actually speaks to people. And talk in a way of confidence, talk in a way of, as an expert. Promotion is not allowed in the majority of groups, but there is no reason why you can't talk about what you do. Like, don't be so afraid that you feel like you can't do it. Generally, promotion means, like, at the end of the post, if you said, and you can download my opt-in on this here, then, and give the link, then that's promotion. But showing that you know a lot about the topic, and invite people, if you have any more specific questions around this, I'd be totally happy to answer them for you. I know that so-and-so, insert leader of the group, has, might have their own stuff and whatever else. Just include the whole group, respect the leader, you know, and this is why being in a group where you are not in direct competition is much better, because if you are doing that, if you are posting authoritative and value posts in direct competition with that group leader, let's not beat around the bush. That could be very, very icky. And I'm not going to pretend otherwise, and people may have a different opinion on this. I know people have a very hard line of, well, competition is competition. But if someone came in here and completely disregarded what I do around niche, and which has happened, and started to post content slandering my content that was in direct different opinion to me, it's my group, this is my space, don't come in and piss on it, right? And I know other group leaders will feel the same thing. I've got no problem people coming in here and adding value, but let's not try and piss off the leader, is I guess what I'm trying to say, right? So just be mindful of where you're hanging out, and don't be afraid to position yourself as an expert. Don't be afraid to talk about what you do and the fact that you are an expert in your field. And don't be afraid to offer people more things, like invite versus tell, okay? So if you've had direct conversations with people, don't be afraid to say, hey, I've got more information on this, but try and do it in the less icky way of group to list to your group. That would be the better way of doing it, so that you don't feel so icky. Okay, fine. So before I move on, somebody said, I struggle to get my business Facebook page noticed when I post content. Should I start posting content on my private page? I have a belief that I shouldn't mix this, but not sure how else to get out there on Facebook. Okay, cool. So this is a really interesting one. So I have nothing against networking on your personal page. So Keely, if you're watching, yes, definitely helping the groups I'm in on my direct competition. So need to rethink this one. Okay, cool. So, right, so Keely, I think this might have been your question. Now, I have no issue with posting onto your personal page. My not issue, but warning is if you're only using your personal page for your business, Facebook will likely shut you down, because if your personal page isn't posting personal things, then there's going to be a problem. I've got a weird thing coming up on my screen, get rid of that. So by this I mean you should have a business page, absolutely. But let me be completely honest with you. If you're not doing Facebook ads, I don't know who else is going to completely disagree with me. In my experience, you may as well not have a page, right? Now, you still have one because it's a presence, and you should have call to actions on your page to pull people in. If they want to look you up, it will come up and they can go, oh, that's where I'll find them, because you'll have a massive sign on your cover photo telling them where to go, to click here, to whatever else, to sign up for this thing, whatever it is. So you're giving them that space to be able to find you, right? So I'm not saying don't have a page. I'm just saying that if you're focusing all of your time and effort posting on a page that has a reach of like 2 people, okay, let's be realistic, that has a reach of say 20 to 50 people, maybe even a reach of 200 people, right? We've all got likes on our page of around about 200 people who we know are not ideal clients, right? That's just the way it is. So if you're relying on a page that is reaching potentially your non-ideal clients, you're kind of wasting your time. And so it's about being strategic. It goes back to your 3 W's, you know, who are you wanting, right? Where are they? Are they on your page, or at least are they seeing the stuff that you're putting out on your page? Because if you're not doing an ad, the reach will be low, and there'll be a lot of time and effort spent on there that you're not doing. I say this time and time again. When I was at the brink of not making much money to making a ton of money, was a difference between me forgetting about my Facebook page and focusing on growing my group. That was it. Because I was like, right, I'm actually, I'm going to be completely honest with you, my page was barren. I literally stopped paying any attention to it whatsoever. I didn't post on it. I didn't do anything. I literally just focused on, okay, how can I get people into my group in the most icky-less way possible, right? Icky way, the most icky way. That's not how I did it. In the most classiest way possible. How can I get people into my group that are quality people who have the problem I solve, who want what I'm offering? How am I going to do that? And you have to be ruthless. That probably sometimes isn't on your page unless you're earning enough money to invest into Facebook ads. So I have no reason to believe that actually, if you want what you're doing to reach more people, to post onto your personal page. Now, the thing is, here's the big caveat. You could write on your Facebook page and then share it over into your personal page. What I have found in my experience is as soon as you do that, people overlook it. Because again, notice the tone, be mindful of where you're putting out what you're saying. If you're putting out what you're saying in a group scenario, as we've just gone over, people don't want to be broadcasted to. And that goes for the same on your personal page. If you've posted a post on your page that is very organizational, very broadcasty, which is fine for the page because that's just what that's valid and appropriate for that platform. But your personal page is personal. They're people. And it's a combination of your friends and your network. And I know you could do something fancy with separating out business connections with friends, and you can decide who it shows and whatever else, which is a very good idea. I just haven't got around to doing that, nor do I care. But that's one way that you could do it. But your personal page can be absolutely be used, but be personal. Share opinions around your industry and funnel people from your network, as in from your personal page, into your group, into your opt-in, so that you're putting people out of that space and into a space where you can dominate. So what happens is people who just use their personal page for their entire business model. So they don't pull people through a journey. They don't take them into their opt-in. They don't take them into their group. And so they're trying to then sell because that's where they're at. Like, don't sell really, I'm not saying never do it, but you're going to be less likely to get people to buy your stuff if you're doing it in these open pools of people where you're not the star. Do you know what I mean? You've got to be the main dominator. You've got to be the person of authority in that space. And on your personal page, you're just not. In someone else's group, you're just not. When you pull people into your list and when you pull people into your own group, yes, you are. Yes, you are that dominating authority on that topic. And so that's the advice I'd give you. Nothing wrong with networking on your personal page. Nothing wrong with putting out opinions. Nothing wrong with telling people what you're doing, what you're about. Saying that you've got something really helpful, that I know a lot of you in my friendship community are business owners or are looking to lose weight or are whatever it is and would love to perhaps hear about this particular thing. Well, hey, join my group because next week we have a da-da-da. Join my challenge because I'm running a challenge on how to do da-da-da-da. Download this opt-in because it does this and this is the name of it and this whatever else. So don't shy away from using your personal page. Absolutely. I don't particularly make a big deal out of it, but I know a lot of other people who do have success with using their personal page, but use it correctly. Be mindful of the space and don't be broadcasty. Try and put out there things that are appropriate for the space. Add more human into what you're doing, particularly for your personal page. I hope that's helped. Keith says, yes, exactly what I'm doing. Thought about getting rid of some, but then my page only has a few likes. I hope that was helpful in terms of answering that question for you. And if anyone else found that helpful, then I'd like to know. But yeah, so that's my opinion on personal pages. That's what I wanted to do. I wanted to move on and I wanted to tell you other ways other than networking in groups where you could potentially find people, because a lot of people get stuck in just finding people from groups. And don't get me wrong, I did, or in the past, in my first year of my online business, I only networked online. That's how I grew my business, and it's totally possible. I made a hell of a lot of money out of doing that. There is nothing wrong, but it's a lot of time and energy to network online. But there are other ways in which you can do this which actually convert a lot quicker and can also boost and build your audience. And I think I just mentioned this before, and if I didn't, I just want to mention it again, that whilst I think it's fair to say that you don't need a huge audience to make money, I do think fresh blood is really, really important. Fresh blood, and this sounds awful, doesn't it? But fresh blood into, as in new people, into your communities will be helpful, because your audience can get tired of being sold to. Your audience can be tired of or perhaps may not be the right people, may not be in the right mindset space to be investing, on whatever else. There might be people that you don't actually want to work with, let's be honest. So we just have to be mindful of, yes, you don't need a large audience. Actually generating new people into there is also a focus that you should be having as well. Right, so that's just wanted to mention that. So other ways of doing things. So obviously you've got in-person networking. And as we mentioned at the beginning, don't be doing the business card thing and just adding people. Actual in-person networking with the right people who have your issue. Again, the same way as you would in a group. And this is why we shouldn't treat people differently as if you were in a in-person networking group as if you were in a group on Facebook. People still want to be treated as people, right? So if you're speaking to them and you have something that would be helpful to them that would be free, then why not offer that to them and just say, hey, look, I've got this thing, would you like it? It might really help with the problem that you're currently going through. And take their details, that's totally fine. They've consented to you giving them the information, then go ahead and do it. The in-person networking can work really well. It also can be very time consuming. So unless you're taking massive value from that group, if you're going there and your ideal client isn't in that room and you're not taking value from it, then again, what's the return on investment? Is it a good place for you to be spending a lot of time in? So it's great. I've taken a lot of clients from it, but I've made sure that I've been strategic and I've said no to certain networking events that I know aren't for me. Okay, so you've got to be a bit ruthless. So in-person events. Speaking events, and I'm not talking about where you're speaking, which is another thing, but actually attending events. Not only are they great value givers, so you're going there and you're taking a ton of value from what's on offer, you're also supplying a space where people have paid, generally these days, sometimes a lot of money to go and attend these events. So they're people who are willing to spend in their businesses or to spend on their health, or I'm using those two examples, so they're just the quickest one, but you get what I'm saying. There are people who are going to these events that are relevant to what they want to hear about, that complement what you do. They're people who are willing to spend money on it, right? So they're great people to be spending time around because you know that they want to spend money in the thing that you're there for. So you can network with them in person, and sometimes I think they're better than just networking events, right? To actually go in there and find industry specific events that make sense to your niche, to go and actually invest and spend time there. And sometimes it is great to go there a night earlier. Like Andy did this recently. Like he went to this mountain festival in Keswick, and so he went there a night before, and there were huge other networking experiences. Sometimes the networking experiences don't happen actually at the event. I mean, they do generally, but some of the times the best times are going out for a meal with everybody the night before. Sometimes it's early in the morning when everyone's getting together and you're all standing outside the doors waiting to go in. There are always other opportunities to get involved. And yeah, it does involve for some people getting outside of a comfort zone, but they are fab ways to get people to network, to offer them things, to get to know those people and make those genuine connections with people. Then obviously you've got speaking events where you're speaking at. Now, I have made a ton of money through doing this. And the reason being is because they're getting value from what I'm talking about. I make sure that all of my talks involve value. It's just what I like to do. All of my talks involve some kind of value. It's not just a nice inspirational story. I like to give something that people can stick their teeth into and actually take away and implement, or at least take it through their heads as they're sitting there to go, wow, that makes sense, that makes sense, that makes sense. So that they're already converted before before anything else. They're already hooked. And they also feel like they know me because the kind of fourth wall has been brought down. There is no missing connection. You can make that human connection with people. They feel like, the fact they're in the same room as you, there's a bigger connection, there's an emotional connection, and people will spend a lot of money with you because of that exact experience. So don't ever disregard actual in-person stuff and speaking events. They can be extremely lucrative, and it happens much quicker. I have people that have met me once, never heard of me before, met me once and dropped thousands and thousands of pounds because they feel like they know me. The trust is there because we're almost in the same room. It's a bit like I know where you live. You've got that trust built a lot quicker and a lot easier. So the conversion process when you go and speak at an event is shortened, massively shortened. because again, you've got that connection with each other. So speaking events where you're speaking, obvious one, opt-ins are another great way to get out there. Now you can do that, you can drive traffic from from various different places. You could drive traffic from your IG account if you're using Instagram. You could drive traffic onto your list from your Facebook group if that's what you've got. You can drive traffic from your personal page onto your list using your opt-in. There are so many different ways you can do it, but also let's not forget about it. You can do ads. You can do ads. If you've never done them before, you don't know what you're doing, I suggest that you get help doing that, because it can be an absolute money pit. And before you put something on an ad, I always suggest test it out on a warm audience that you have already, that doesn't involve spending money, to make sure that it's hitting the spot and that you're getting the clicks that you need. Now, whilst we're on the topic of opt-ins, as I always say, the headline is one of the biggest things you need to get right. And this is, I shouldn't have really done this here, but this is a really, really important point. It's like a whole other topic. Whatever it is that you are offering, you need to make sure that it's clear, understandable, and it's a big promise. So whether you're inviting someone into your group, whether you've got an opt-in headline, whatever it might be, you need to give people the big promise. You need to have a strong headline as to why they should do the thing that you want them to do. Because if you don't have a strong headline, they are not going to click. They need to know what they're getting. It needs to be understandable. It needs to pack a punch, and it needs to speak to either or both of their problem that they're experiencing and the thing that they want. That's really, really important. If you don't get that right, that there's no point. So that's why I always say test it out on a warm audience first, because then you know if you get a lot of interaction and a lot of engagement, then you know that, oh, okay, people like this. This could be a good thing to put on an ad potentially. Okay. Fine. So we have opt-ins, we have PR. So that could involve, and PR is generally a longer term strategy. That's not like an instant gratification model. This is something that will take a while to be embedded. So actually writing articles for publications on or offline, depending on what it is, and submitting those. And obviously the call to action at the end of that will be to either join your list or join your group or whatever you want it to be. Okay, so make sure you're clear about what you want people to do next. Make sure the article you're writing is both appropriate to the publication and appropriate to what it is that you do, to make sure that you're getting the right people in to your funnel. And now this is when I said at the beginning, like, you either don't have clarity on who you're talking about or you're doing this. Now I want to talk about this, the not taking action and closing your eyes, because a lot of people walk around going, I don't know where they are, I don't know where they are. And I go, well, what about this publication? What about this one? What about this one? And they go, And I have been there. I have been that person who was too afraid to go ahead and submit articles, because I was quite happy to be the expert inside of the comfort of my own little group. But when I had to go and declare that I was an expert to the world, wow, that was a whole other ball game. But at the end of the day, I urge you, this is how I got over this fear of being the expert publicly. Going out there and actually watching and reading all the things that are put out there on those publications, you will probably find that you go, I could have done that. Like, I could write better than that, or I can do that, and that's not that bad. And you will suddenly realize that you are absolutely fine, and that you've got this kind of like fear of the unknown. But when you really call it out and you look at it, and trust me, the first time I submitted an article and it got accepted, I was like, oh, well, that was easy. It was kind of like I brought it up to be this big deal, and it really wasn't. Just write the friggin' article and submit it. Actually, don't do that, because that's one bad way of doing it. Some places require you to write the article first. Obviously, if that's the case, do that. If they don't require you to submit the article, submit your headlines. Again, it all comes down to the headlines. Make the headlines juicy enough that they'll want to hear. Let them know that you can turn the publication around in like 48 hours, and then they can choose which one they want. So maybe send them 3 headlines that you think that they might want to hear about, or after you've done a bit of research about the platform that you are wanting to post to, then you can write out your 3 headlines, pitch those headlines, get them to pick They'll come back to you and say, hey, I'd really like to see this one. And then you write the article. And that's when you submit it, when you get a bite, I guess. But there are some places that require you to actually write the whole thing out to begin with. It just depends on who you're pitching to. But it really isn't that big a deal. It really isn't that hard. It's you being in your own way that's stopping you from doing that. And I'm not saying it for someone who's always been fine with it, because I've not. But you've just got to do it the first time you do it, and it actually gets accepted and you do it. It really is a bit like, oh, why have I made such a big deal out of that the whole time? So PR, writing articles, another way you could do it, like guest expert spotlights. Now that could be inside of a group, but it can also be in other places. Like I did a live on Psychologies after speaking to Susie Greaves and pitching to her. So there are other ways other than writing that you can also leverage other people's audiences. So like Psychology's audience, I was leveraging doing a live for them, and they allow people to put call to actions on the end of those lives as well, as most people would or should do. So there are other places you can do that as well. But again, that tends to be a longer strategy, but you've got to at least get the ball, like the longer you leave it to start the ball rolling, the longer it will be for it to come to fruition. So just start now, schedule in time to do it, because if you do that, you'll always find that there'll be something coming in at some point. And then obviously you've got other platforms other than just Facebook. You've got IG, you've got LinkedIn, other places where you can use a similar thing. It's the 3 W's. Who do you want? Okay, so what platforms do I need to be on? You know, so where are they? Okay, so they're on this platform, they're here. What do I need to be saying around their problem that they're experiencing, the thing that they want? How can I create content around that? How can I put it out there? Whereas, you know, as much as possible, using a call to action to come into the next stage of that kind of prospect client journey, where they can then come into your tribe. What are you going to use to tempt them into your tribe? And those are the best ways. Then obviously you've got the paid ways. So those are the time consuming ways of doing things that are still just as lucrative though. Particularly for me, my favorite is speaking events. I love doing speaking events, and they're very, very lucrative. But you can use Facebook ads, Google ads, YouTube ads. There are other ways of doing it as well. But if you have time, why not spend the time doing it? If you don't have the time, then obviously do the ads. But I would suggest you actually going out and finding somebody. My go-to person, by the way, if you're wondering who I would suggest for Facebook ads, is Liz Melville. She is the Facebook ad queen. So I would suggest going to her if you want someone to give you some help on that. My least favorite ways, because there are more ways than that, my least favorite ways is summits and giveaways. So summits and giveaways are my least favorite ways. And the reason they're my least favorite ways is because I find that whilst they are huge list builders and you can get a lot of people onto your list very quickly, you also experience a lot of unengaged people, and it's and a lot of unsubscribes. Okay, so that's why I actually dislike them. And I found that, I don't know, a few summits recently, I know Jessica Lorimer ran a podcast on this particular topic. It's a very good podcast. You should go and check it out. Smart Leaders Sell podcast. And I completely agree with her that people running the summits, you may not be in total alignment with, and what they ask you to put out there and how you promote to your audience, it may not be a great fit. There are a lot of things that go on with summits that just don't align with what you want to do. So I'm not saying don't do them, just be picky. I think be pickier these days, because people are also a little bit tired of them as well, I think. So just be picky about where you do your summits. I think it's a lesson I've learned recently. And giveaways, the same thing. It's great to be involved. They generally involve some form of payment to the person running the giveaway. But again, yeah, it's worth a wing, but you might end up with a ton of people who then don't really engage and also unsubscribe when they've got the thing that they wanted. So meh. I'm not saying don't do them, but I'm also saying that I personally don't think they're great ways. I would go for all of those other ways that I've talked about other than those two any day, even the non-paid stuff. I'd actually rather run a Facebook ad than I would go on a summit these days, but there we go. Fine, I'm just going to go check. I think we are coming to a close. I'm making sure I've just answered everybody's questions. I think I've answered your questions. Oh, the other thing as well is obviously sell your freebie. A lot of people have freebies that they sorry, I just noticed Fran's comments that giveaways I find just want free stuff. Yeah, it tends to be. Yeah, sometimes you can tend to just generate the freebie hunters, absolutely. But yeah, a lot of people have freebies and they're like, well, what do I do with them? I'm like, you've got to sell freebies. You can't, even though they're free, they still need to be sold, if that makes any sense. So what in the business is called a lead magnet, as in read magnet, for your lead magnet. So you have to do a bit of work. Now that work doesn't have to be written. You could be selling your freebie. And so here we go. Here's some places where you can sell your freebie. So you can sell your freebie off of the end of a Facebook Live. It could be off of the end of a guest expert spotlight. It could be in your description of your group. It could be in the description of your personal page somewhere. It could be hiding behind some kind, I say hiding behind, it should be obvious. Make your call to action obvious. But behind a cover photo, any other photos that you've got going on, you could put it in your email signatures, put it on your homepage above the fold, so it's the first thing that people see when they come onto your site. So they're like, oh, okay, that's interesting. Yep, that's what I want, and they can come onto your list, because your website is great, but you can't keep people there, right? So you've got to find a way of keeping people there, or at least with you. So that would be dragging them over onto your list or into your group or something like that. So make sure that call to action is above the fold on your homepage, at the end of posts where you're allowed to promote, or in your own space, end of your blogs, end of your guest expert spotlights, whether that be a guest blog, an article, wherever it is. You can put those on the end as well. So there are tons of places where you could be advertising and making the most of that freebie that potentially you're not. And is it because you perhaps feel a little bit unconfident about, is this freebie any good? That could be something, and the only way you're going to find out is if you put it out there. So if it doesn't actually do any good, then you just have to kind of like rework your options. And that's not what I'm going to talk about today, because there are other trainings that I could do. I've done hours and hours of training on how to create great freebies. But yeah, it just means that you can't, sometimes you just have to go back to the drawing board. But it's sitting there not doing anything is sitting in no man's land. You're not going to make any further progress if you don't put it out there. Put it out there, see what happens. And the more you do this and the more feedback you get, the more tweaks you can make. It's better to get honest feedback than it is to just pretend that it's all good and it's all fine. Just because you have created a freebie doesn't mean it's going to be a successful one. It's just the hard line. It's sad news, I know, but it's just the way life is. So you may as well go out there and put it out there and see. So yeah, there we go. Just keep going back to the 3 W's. Who are they? Where are they? What am I saying? Make sure that what you are saying is human, helpful, and relevant to what you do.